I'm Tracy Madsen, certified professional dog trainer from Utah, and I'm excited to be here tonight to see what questions everybody has. Um, we are doing a live drawing tonight, so as you log on or as you join, just put your full name and either state or country that you're coming from, and I will do a drawing about between 7 and 7:30, depending on how many questions that we have. And then, so I'm going to be writing names down, which I will then, I'm going to use Maddie's here. So I'm going to use Maddie as a table. Hi, Julie. Write Julie down, New York. So Julie, what kind of weather are you guys having? Here it's like sunny one day, and then it's freezing cold. Yesterday I wore two coats. It was so cold. Today was like so much warmer. All I had on was a sweatshirt. So this is our weird spring weather. Hi, Aisling. Aisling's coming to us in the middle of the night from Ireland. She should get a prize for most voted Pupford fan because she stays up until the middle of the night to do these live Q&As. Aisling, also, if you ever do have specific questions and you don't want to stay up until the middle of the night, you can always email me as well, and I'm happy to help you with your dog and answer any questions. So for anybody that lives like around the world, you can reach me at, I'm going to type it in, Tracy at Pupford.com. Tracy with an I. So like, feel free to do that as well. So Julie, we had a birthday party for my twins. Hoda did a great job. Oh, I have this weird, okay. You've been around that is afraid of dogs. That's awesome. And it's raining on and off. Oh, I wish we would get rain. I love rain. I just don't like wind. Yesterday it was windy and cold, but I love rain. So let me think of, usually I try and talk about a training topic. Oh, we are going to be filming a new kind of informational course for everybody, probably in about 2 weeks. So we're going to be talking about the 4 quadrants of training, how they work, things like that. So I'm super excited. It'll probably be a while before it gets released, but I think it'll be really good information, and it's something that I go over with every single private client that I have. So the fact that they wanted to do this and give you guys all this information, I think is going to help a lot. It's one of the first things I learned as a science-based trainer, so it kind of lets you know like how dogs learn, how we can change their behavior, why certain things are reinforcing, stuff like that. Julie, I have not heard of Gia Savoci. Oh, she's a trainer. I'll have to look her up. Is she, like, does she have her own YouTube channel, stuff like that? Or, because yeah, I haven't heard of her before. And I'm so glad that you like the live videos enough to stay up this late. I can barely make it up past 9 o'clock, so I don't know that I could make it up this late. And I just got home. Okay, so I'm here tonight with Maddie is over here sleeping. And then Jade is walking around. Let's see, what did I do with my pen? Oh, there it is. So I met, while we're waiting for a few more people to get on, I met this girl today who's from Australia, and she was asking for some help with impulse control with her dog. She has an Australian Shepherd, and she's only had this dog for 3 months, and I'm not kidding. This dog was so well behaved, other than the jumping and constantly wanting attention. But she went through all of her tricks. Like she knew spin, she knew roll over, she knew jump. She had a really good weight. Um, and I couldn't believe. Oh, and she could do figure eights through the lady's legs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you have done all of this in 3 months. It kind of made me feel like I've neglected my own dogs because I do some tricks with Jade, but she can't even do all those. And I've had her for, how long have I had you? Year and a half? So yeah, it was actually really impressive. Um, so we're gonna look for an agility. I don't teach agility. I'd actually kind of like to do it with Jade, but I'm gonna look and see if anybody's teaching agility out here. So she's certified like me. I will tell you honestly, we need more science-based trainers out here where I am. There's several in Salt Lake, but I'm about an hour from Salt Lake, and where I live, they are few and far between, and I am like dying out here. I am so busy, which I'm grateful to have the work and to be really busy, but there are some days when I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need a break. I'm trying to take Sunday, Mondays off, but I always end up working on Mondays, and I teach classes on Monday night. Um, and then I stay up late, like writing training plans and returning emails. And there's one other trainer that I know of up here that does the same kind of training, but she has a young child, and so she's only working part time, so she's referring all of her stuff to me. And I think I'm one of the only trainers up here that does science-based training as far as behavior. I'm not using aversives. So yes, ask Gia if she would like to move to Park City, um, because I would love to have some help. That would be awesome. Oh, okay. So Aisling's asking, that dog sounds exactly like Bandit. He constantly wants attention, but we completely baby him. Um, yes, and I'm sorry about your other two dogs. I lost my three original pit bulls all within a year of each other, and it was all to cancer, and it was devastating. I lost one, and then I lost the other one a month later, and then I lost the other one about 8 months later. And so um, they are the ones that I named my three little pits business after, and so it nearly destroyed me to lose them because they are the reason I got into training. Switched over to science-based training. They were such awesome dogs. They're the ones that got me into pit bull advocacy, all that stuff. So I know how devastating that can be. Um, and so one thing that we did with this dog is the girl was trying to hold her back, and I said, just let her go. And she was jumping all over. I just kept turning my back, ignoring, walking away. And finally the dog sat, and as soon as she sat, I gave her a treat and started to give her attention. And then she started to jump, and so then I turned my back, walked away, just kept turning circles. And then she finally, it only took about 2 minutes, and then she was just sitting. And then I could pet her and give her treats, and she stopped jumping. So just through my body language, and this is one of the things that we will be, hi Emily, this is one of the things that we will be going over in this new course that we're doing. Is the negative punishment is removing something that the dog wants. So like removing my attention when she's doing something I don't want. And then when the dog is sitting and not jumping, that's when I give the dog attention. So the owner was trying to say off, like giving all these cues, and I said, just let her go. And I didn't even say anything, but just through me ignoring and then giving attention when she's sitting, and then ignoring, giving attention when she's sitting, she learned that, oh, if I sit and not don't jump, then she says hi to me and gives me um, attention. And it worked great. This dog caught on so quickly. I also did something similar with the client that I had right after her. These dogs are not as well trained. This couple got two puppies within 6 months of each other, and I think they're in a little bit over their head. So these dogs really lack impulse control as well. So the husband had one of the puppies out when I arrived, and the dog was pulling to get to me. And I said, have him sit and wait. And I started to approach. If the dog pulled to say hi, I backed away and even turned around and turned my back. And then I would have him put the dog back in a sit and a wait, and then I would start to approach. So it's actually the first part of the Canine Good Citizen test where the dog sits politely for greeting, but if they move and approach the person, then the person backs away. So if they sit and wait, then I come up and say hi, I pet them, I give them a treat. But if they pull towards me before they're released, then that causes me to back away. And we were able to do, I was able to get up. It took longer with one dog. It took about 5 minutes before I could actually go up and say hi with the first dog. And then the other dog, it was like about 2 minutes. So yeah, try that as well. And I baby my dogs too, so don't feel bad about that. But one of the reasons that Jake jumps is because people give her attention when she jumps. And sometimes it's negative attention. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, you need to get down, your mom's going to get mad. Or your mom doesn't want you doing this. I don't really get mad at my dog. But that's still giving her attention. So just asking people to back away, turn around, ignore, and then only give behavior or only give reinforcement before on the floor sitting. So try that. That will work. Okay, let me write down Anita. Okay. Okay, Julie, I really need help with recall because she's really sneaky. When we say car, she goes in the car. But yesterday when we got her into the car, somehow the kids managed to open 2 sliding doors and she got out again, and I had to go after her. Okay. So are you talking about like the sliding doors of a minivan or something, like that kind of sliding door? I would teach a stay for that. But with recall, that is hard because sometimes there are accidents when people leave doors open. I always teach recall with a leash, as you know. So I start with a 6-foot leash, and then a 15, and then a 30, and then if you have kids, you can try and train the kids, like, don't leave doors open and don't do this. Then, because the dog can get out. But depending on the age of your kids, if it's hard to train them, then I would maybe put Dakota in the vehicle with a leash attached. So that if she does jump out and you have to go after her, at least you have a leash you can pick up. One thing that I have started to do is, I learned this a long time ago, is if I chase my dogs, they think it's a game and they'll keep running. So my very first pit bull, it was kind of amusing because I just gotten him and we'd been going car to the house several times without a leash. So I thought he was doing pretty good. And one day he ran to the road and he looked at me, looked up the street, looked at me, and he took off up the street. And luckily, this is when I found that he was a very good pit bull and was not aggressive at all, because I chased him through my neighbor's chickens, roosters, and he ended up in my neighbor's sheep. And luckily, he did not get shot because I'm like, he's friendly, he won't hurt your cheap. He just wanted to play. He was trying to play with them. So we had to corner him. But as long as I was chasing him, he thought it was a game. So I since learned that if I turn the other way and say, like, okay, see, I'm leaving, and I do this with Jade. When I'm at my office, if I let Jade out to go potty, she will ignore me. Like, she won't even listen to her name. So I will get in my car and start to drive away and open the door, and I'll say, see you, Jade, I'm leaving. Do you want to come? And then she'll, like, she's afraid of getting left, so she'll run and jump in my car and then go. So I've learned not to go after her. But if she thinks she's being left, then she will come. You can also, I've done this before, I've done this with my dog Daphne. I've gotten down on the ground and pretend like I'm digging, like, oh my gosh, look what I found. This is the coolest thing ever. And I'll pretend like I found something that I'm digging up. And then a lot of times the dogs will be like, oh, what's mom doing? That looks fun. And so then they'll come up to see what you're doing. And then I don't like quickly grab them because I don't want them to realize that they've been tricked. But I'll just like reach over and like put a leash on or something like that. But yes, and the trick with recall is to make yourself more exciting than anything in your dog's environment. So if your dog gets out, being like, hey, come over here, we're having a party over here, let's go, this is more fun. And like turn and run the other way. Or like, I use really high value treats. Like I'll use the puppered salmon treats or I'll use bacon. So that my dogs learn that when they come to me, really, really high, really good things happen. And I don't have bacon on me all the time. So sometimes I just have to like use a ton of praise, and then I usually always have salmon treats in my car. So then I can reward them with that. So try that. And I would start working on recall and just high rate of reinforcement, 6-foot line. And when we go on walks too, I will do it on leash and we'll practice walking. I'll let them go sniff and then I'll practice come and then reward and then, okay, go play. And then I will graduate to a 15-foot leash or 30. So then they have more room. They can get farther out. But then I can call them back. So, oh yes, beef heart. I have to tell you a funny story about beef hearts. So welcome, Travis. I haven't seen your name before. We are always so excited when men join us because we don't get a whole lot of men. We joke that it's always the women that train the dogs because they're always the ones that are on the live. And also, Travis, if you can tell me where you're from, I can enter you into the drawing. I'm going to write Marion down. Marion's from Utah, as am I. She's about an hour away from me. So Travis, I'm going to come back and answer your question about long lines. But while we on, oh, you have been on here before. Okay. Since we're talking about recall, I'm going to talk about like another cue that you can use is like a retreat cue. So, oh, Canada. I'm actually trying to change that rule. I put everybody in, whether you're from the U.S. or not. And I'm going to see if maybe we can let other people win like at least once a month so that everybody's eligible. But since I'm not the owners, but I'm going to try. But I put you down anyway. Okay, so I have a friend colleague that uses a flight cue. And what that means to the dog is I'm going to turn 180 degrees and have the best party ever. And her flight cue, I use the word retreat, but she uses the cue chicken hearts. And then her dogs know that they get chicken hearts. And honestly, I didn't know that was a thing that you could get from a butcher. I didn't know that you could buy beef hearts or chicken hearts. But that's what her dogs get, and I'm sure she freezes them or something. And they only get chicken hearts when they hear the flight cue. So you could do something like that, and that's more of an emergency. Like I do a similar like emergency recall. My word is now. So if I say now, then they know they're going to get something super yummy that they don't hardly ever get. And I would use something different than bacon since I'm using bacon. I do use bacon for their flight cue um, or emergency recall. So with some dogs, that has to be two different things. But like for reactive dogs, once they go over threshold, we'll use a flight cue. But you could totally use that as like an emergency recall. So, it's like now, only it's like a fun, like beef hearts. And then they know, oh my gosh. So to the dog, it has to seem like Thanksgiving or Christmas. Like when they hear that, it's the only time we get turkey, or when we hear that word, it's the only time we get presents. Um, so yes, beef hearts um, work really well for that. Um, I've been gonna like research where I can get chicken hearts or something like that. But since I'm vegetarian, it's really I don't ever go to the butcher. And we do have a butcher that like puts dog treat like bones and stuff where they sell. But I'll have to ask. Um, I'll have to ask if they sell like chicken hearts or beef hearts. I just haven't been able to make myself buy them yet. Although every time I go to the diner, I do get a side of bacon in a box, and that's what I use for my dog's flight cue and recall and stuff like that. Okay, so Travis. Yeah, so when I teach recall, I start with a 6-foot leash, and I wait till the dog has a really good recall on a 6-foot leash. Then I will graduate to a 15-foot leash. So that gives them more freedom. And this is kind of what I was talking about with Julie, talking about recall. Then I'll go to a longer line, like a 20 or 30 foot. Um, so I'll use Jade as an example. Jade is perfect in the house. She's perfect in the backyard, and she's great in puppy class because she has generalized those behaviors in those places. But whenever you start to work in a new place, dogs don't generalize. So because Mickey knows it great in the driveway with the leash on, without a leash, then yeah, it's going to be harder to get her to or him to listen. And if you're in a new place, so like if I go hiking with my dog, I do not yet use the word come with Jade because she gets so distracted that she just like gets in this mode and she doesn't even listen to me. Like I can say her name and she's going to be like, I'm sniffing. Don't bother me. I'm sniffing. So I either don't use the word come unless I'm 100% sure she's going to come. So she's coming to me anyway, or if I can reel it in with a long line. So I would use a long line and practice, in your house, then in your driveway, then, in a parking lot, different places. And then when your dog's coming every single time, then have them start to drag a leash. So in a driveway, have your dog drag a leash. And then if your dog doesn't come, pick up the leash and reel him in so that you can reinforce that behavior. And I'll do that for a while until I am really sure that the dog has a really good recall, and then I'll do it off leash. Now, if I trust a dog off leash and I say come and they don't do it, if I go get them, then I'll just say something like, "Oh, that is so bad. You did not come. I'm sorry, but you just lost your off leash privilege." And then they get a leash back on and they've lost their off leash privilege for a while. And then we work on more recall. Now that being said, if he doesn't listen, but then let's say that he ignores you, but then he finally comes. If he finally comes, you have to praise him, which I know is hard because you're mad and your dog just ignored you, but then finally decided to come. So, like, I'll use when I'm at my office, and I just told you our scenario where I, usually let Jade go out and go potty, and there's like other dogs that go potty there, so she's just got to sniff everything. But I don't use come, but I will open the car door and say, "Hey, I'm leaving," Are you coming with me? And then she'll start to run towards the car, and then I'll say, oh, good, come on, let's go, let's go. And so then she'll come. If she's ignored me, but then she comes, I might say, oh, Jade, you are such a naughty girl. You just don't listen to me when you're sniffing, do you? And I vent, and sometimes I cuss, but I do it in my happy voice so she thinks she's the best dog ever. Because even though she ignored me initially, she did finally come, so I want to reward that come. Because that's what she's going to remember. She's not going to remember, she's just doing what dogs do. Um, and so I would practice if she, oh, Mickey's a she. I knew there was a reason I kept saying she and then correcting myself. If she isn't listening without the leash, then she's not ready to be off leash yet. So you can also think about, practicing in one area or with a leash as being preschool, and then without a leash as kind of high school level. So that means that you don't really want to skip elementary, junior high, and practice on a high school level if Mickey is still on a preschool level. Um, so yeah, there are certain situations, like I said, at home, in the backyard, um, at puppy class, Jade will do an off leash. But other than that, I don't trust her yet. So I will whistle, or I'll say, let's go this way, or I'll turn around and act like I'm going to leave her, and then she'll come. And then when she's running towards me, then I say, oh, good, come. Then I reward her for the come. So I hope that makes sense. But I do use a long line for quite a while before I trust them off leash. But that was a great question. Okay. Yes. So Julie, it can be really stressful. I've had a dog. I've had a couple occasions where I've had dogs take off on me, like out hiking. They've gone to chase deer or something, and that is stressful. That I would equate to like you people that are parents losing your child in a grocery store, and then you're like scared and um, all at the same time. And it's like, am I ever going to get my dog back? Is he just going to take off forever? Um, so yes, it is very, very stressful. And when I first got Tacoma and he took off up the road, him being a pit bull and me living in rural Utah, I was really worried that he was going to get shot. That I hadn't had him that long, maybe a couple months, but we've been practicing going, I mean, on leash, of course, at first, going from door to car to door, back and forth. So I decided to trust him off leash. And it was really stressful because I thought, oh my gosh, somebody's going to shoot him because he's running through people's livestock. I mean, they have chickens and roosters and pigs and sheep, and people up here are very protective of it's their livelihood. Well, I get it. I was just very, very lucky that my neighbors did not shoot him. So yeah, I know it can be really, really stressful, and that's probably one reason that I do so much leash work before I trust them off leash. So now, like I trust my dogs to go from the house to the car and the car to the house, and there are certain areas where I will let them off leash, but around here, they're still on leash. The other reason is I live on a highway, so if my dogs saw a dog across the street and wanted to go say hi, I don't trust them to not want to dart out into traffic to go see the neighbors. So that's the other reason I use a leash. Um, oh, and peanut butter. Yep, that works too. Um, oh, I like that. A key. Oh, yeah, because that's like here in Spanish, right? Um, interesting. I used to use the word here, the English word for here, with my search and rescue dog, um, which meant just come back to my general area, and then kommen zu mir in German meant come sit and watch me. So yeah, I still kind of do that with my dog. So like here for me means just come back close. But if I say come, that means come and sit in front of me. So Anita, you buy chicken hearts too. I did not know that was a thing. Um, yeah, that's so interesting. Um, so Travis, it depends on how um, it depends on how often you've been using the recall, and she's ignored you. So yeah, if you've used the recall a lot and she ignores it, then you could maybe come up with a different cue. So you could say, um, like, that's why I use like "Komm zu mir," which is like in German, come here. Um, or you could start to use front. So now instead of saying come front, I'll just say like front, and that means come sit and look at me. Um, so yeah, you could use a different word, and then once your dog is coming more reliably, um, and, and I'm looking at your next question. While your dog is learning a recall, I would use a high value treat every single time she comes, so that she learns that coming to you is really rewarding. And yes, use gizzards, gross, but yes, use gizzards, chicken hearts, beef hearts, whatever disgusting animal part you want to use. Um, and and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to people that eat meat. I mean, I work at a vet clinic, so I'm very used to looking at animal body parts because I used to sit during surgery. So it's really cool. I just can't imagine eating it, but you know, I don't even I don't eat meat at all. But in the beginning, I would use a high value treat. Then once she has a pretty reliable recall, um, then you can start to give a lower value treat if it's delayed, but I would still reward because she still came. And a lot of times, like I said, when I'm training recalls, I will teach the dog, you know, like, come, get a yummy treat, and then, okay, go play. So in the dog's mind, it's like, oh, I come, I get a reward, and then I get to go play again. So it's a win-win. And then eventually, like, that's part of our training. But then sometimes, you know, they come and they get a leash put on them, but they still get a really good treat. Um, because if the dog is doing something else and ignoring you or not listening, they may not recognize that their recall is delayed. All they think about right then is that there's something else that's more rewarding that has their attention. And so then if they come and get a not very good reward, then they might think, well, I don't know, I think I'm just going to stay sniffing this because last time I came, I only got a milk bone and that wasn't very good. So this is more rewarding. Does that make sense? So I kind of always use a high value reward for recall. Um, and I do get to a point where I just use like tons of praise. Once we've been doing it for like 2 years and the dog has a really reliable recall, then I'll just switch to like praise and then, you know, things like that. But for now, yeah, I would probably use a high value treat all the time, um, just until she is like rock solid on that recall. Because you don't want her to think, oh yeah, it. I mean, and it is um, frustrating. Oh, you're going. I used to do taekwondo too. Now I'm too old and my joints are too bad. Yeah. So also, really quick, you have a dog that is kind of in the teenage, almost adult stage. So sometimes they go through that phase where it's like they don't want to listen. You have a teenager that doesn't want to listen. And yes, it is frustrating. So I would just keep practicing, use a high value reward every single time. and start with a different word, and then you can eventually switch back over to your other word once your dog knows it. And that is why I teach my dogs in German, because I don't want my dogs to be confused when other people say like sit down or down instead of off. So I use a different language because that way people can't screw up my dogs or confuse my dogs. So yes, that's why I do that. And yeah, and switching to a key, you can switch it again to like here or something else. Um, if you think you've poisoned a key cue, but yeah. And then once it's really reliable, then you can use your word like here, come, and then you can switch it back over if you want. Because after some time has gone by, they they won't remember the poison cue. But it might take like a year. Like I've had to change words and before, and I like kept the new word for a year before changing it back. And sometimes I never did change it back because we just got used to that word. So have fun at Taekwondo. I made it to yellow belt, um, and I was in junior high, and we were just kind of in it for the boys. And then when it got serious and we had to start testing and doing all that stuff, we're like, I don't like tests. I'm not going to do it. But it was fun. Julie, I just got the salmon treat. She seems to like it. Um, so Travis, for right now, I would not use low value treats even if she delays. I would use high value treats every single time, even if she delays for a while, just so that she learns that coming to you is always going to be valuable. Then once she has a really reliable recall and she's coming to you every single time, then you can raise the criteria and say, I'm only going to give you this when you come immediately. But if you don't come immediately, then you get something lower value. But I wouldn't do that right now. I would wait until she's got a really good recall with the leash every time, and then start to raise criteria. So that's the way that I would do it. Tracy, yes. And you spell yours like me, which is so, I hardly ever meet people that spell their names like I do. Okay, so Tracy, tell me where you're from, and I'll enter you in the drawing. Okay. What would you suggest for excessive barking at people? Trying to socialize her, and it's tough. She's 7 months. So it depends on why she's barking. So I did. Travis, have a good week too. And yes, next week, let me know how it went. Let me know how it's going. And you can always email me as well. Tracy with an I at pupford.com. So I did a course through Pupford for barking. So it depends on why the dog is barking. If it's like a fear thing or an unsocialized thing, I like that you're doing desensitization and not going past your threshold. We have somebody else from Canada. So Ontario. Cindy, welcome back, Cindy. Put you on. So I would probably, if it's a lack of socialization thing, I would probably do the systematic desensitization and counter conditioning. So I also like to do the look at that, which Tracy, if you email me, I will send you the handout for look at that. So as you're walking, as soon as you see people, and if your dog is under threshold, stop and play the look at that, and just be like, oh look, there's some people, click treat. Oh look, there's some people, click treat. And so you're pairing like people with treats or strangers with treats, But then you're teaching your dog something else to do, which is just notice them and not bark. Because usually dogs bark to either alert you or they're unfamiliar with something. So like when we're home, I allow my dogs to bark once to alert me that somebody's at the door or that something's going on outside. And usually either somebody's walking by or somebody's cows are out or horses are out or something. So I like them to alert me and let me know, and then I'll go out and say, "Oh, it's okay. It's just a neighbor mowing their lawn. Now quiet." And then if they're not quiet, they get brought in. So I do allow them. Oh, so you did go through that course, okay? Um, so I would do the look at that, and where you just stop, have your dog like notice a person, click treat. For this, I do use a clicker. um, so that when your dog hears the click, they know, oh, a treat's coming, and they learn to look away and look at you. And then eventually they'll learn to like just look at somebody and then look back at you. If you can set up, um, Jade is being a cat right now. If you can set up training sessions with somebody where somebody can help, um, for dogs that are like reactive, and it's like if it's a fear type thing or lack of socialization type thing, what I do is I will toss treats behind the dog. So if you can get a neighbor or somebody that your dog maybe doesn't know as well to help, like you can ask them, like arm them with a handful of treats and ask them to toss treats behind your dog. So that allows your dog to back up, like to retreat to a safe place, and then they'll come just as close as they're comfortable and then toss a treat behind them again. So it allows them to retreat, come forward, retreat, come forward. And then when they calm down, then you can throw treats a little bit closer and a little bit closer. If the dog doesn't come closer, like you don't want to bribe them to come closer to the person, but you do want to be like, oh, strangers equal treats. And look, there's strangers tossing treats to you. And you get to go back where you're safe, and then you can come forward. And only expect the dog to come forward just to where they're comfortable. So I would do that. I would do the look at that, and then as long as your dog stays calm, you can slowly, like one step at a time, get closer, and then see, Daphne just barked and off they went. See what she's barking at. But my dogs are pretty good about not barking unless there's something to bark at, so there's usually something going on. But yeah, I would do the look at that, and then slowly, like one step at a time, go closer, and then one step at a time, go closer, and then if your dog starts barking, then you can back up, or if you're close enough, ask the person like to toss treats behind your dog. So that then she's like, oh, strangers. I like it when I see strangers because I'm getting really yummy treats. And it also teaches her just to notice people and not react. Um, you could also go um, to places like, depending on how reactive, you can go to places like Petco, Home Depot, things like that, where people are really pet friendly, and just ask people to toss treats to your dog and just say, I'm trying to socialize my dog. Do you mind just like tossing a few treats? And then let your dog decide if she wants to go closer and say hi. You don't ever want to force a dog, but if she starts to make that association, and then I always tell people, like, don't reach over a dog to pet, because for shy dogs that can be scary. But like, I'll hold out my hand and just see if the dog wants to come, and if they don't, then I'll toss the treat to them. If they do, then I'll like gently like start to scratch under the chin instead of reaching over them. Um, okay. Um, awesome. So Cindy just said all the neighbors' dogs were barking outside and Joey sat quiet. That's awesome. Um, gave him treat, and all the other dogs stopped want a treat too. Yeah, that's perfect. My dogs are like, they're so good when I have treats because they know um, that I have treats. So they're going to like be quiet and just focus and try to be really good so that they get them. Still surfing leaves and sticks on walks. Can't stop him. So one thing I would probably do with Joey is teach him to carry something in his mouth. So my shepherd that was a search and rescue dog, he always had to have leaves or sticks or something in his mouth. Um, so I just always had a tennis ball, and I would let him carry a tennis ball on a walk, and then he didn't want anything else. So sometimes it would be a reward for him to get to pull like a stick or something out of the ground, and then he would carry it in his mouth the whole time. So I just taught him to carry something in his mouth, and then he was leaving all kinds of other stuff. He was happy as long as something was in his mouth. So you could try that. If he's still searching for leaves and sticks, um, I have another client's dog that does that as well. Like he loves to carry sticks in his mouth. Um, so as we're walking, I'll let him find one stick, and then he carries that through the whole walk. And then I have found that he leaves other stuff. So he leaves rabbit poop, like whatever else we might come upon, he will leave that as long as he has a stick in his mouth. So I let him carry a stick. And that seems to work really well for him. So I got to change positions. I pulled a muscle in my back this week and it's kind of sore. So yeah, Dakota does. So the reason Jade was walking on the back of the couch is because Maddie was laying right here and she didn't want to step over Maddie. So she walked along the back to get to the other side. Yes, and so Tracy, the next step to that, and if you went through that course, you probably got the look at that engage disengage handout. But if you didn't, email me and I'll send it to you. When your dog starts to then like look at the people and then look at you, like, oh, mom, there's some people. I click for that too. So when they start to disengage on their own and focus on me, I will click and treat. And sometimes it takes a while. Like I've been doing that with a dog for, several months, probably like 8 months. And he's dog reactive. But he finally now will look at a dog, look at me, and I click and treat. He'll look at a dog, oh, there's a dog, I know what to do, I'm looking at you, click treat. So I use the clicker for that too. Some of the other stuff, I just use yes, so I don't use the clicker for all of it, but definitely for that, when you're trying to teach them to disengage, I do use a clicker. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Wow, we're getting done early tonight. It's only 10 to 7. If no one has questions, I can do a drawing now. And then if you want to leave, you can. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay on. I usually will stay on till 8 o'clock my time if people have questions. Let me just go back and make sure I didn't skip any because sometimes I do them out of turn. Oh, Michelle. Okay, I missed Michelle's question. I'm glad I went back. Okay, Michelle, I'm still having issues with my dog pulling me on the leash, and when she sees other dogs, she tries to get away. So is she trying to get away from you when she sees other dogs, or is she trying to like get away to go see the other dog, or is she trying to get away because she's afraid of the other dog? Generally for leash pulling, I change direction. And if you're not using a harness, I would recommend getting a freedom harness that clips in front, because then if she starts to pull, it's going to turn her back towards you, and then she physically can't pull. So I use a freedom harness for that. But then if the dog starts to pull, I will change direction and go the other way. Then when the dog is running to catch up with me, when they're like right next, like not in a perfect heel position, but when they're more on my side, then I will reward. And Another thing that you can do, especially if she sees other dogs, is start to drop treats right in front of her and make sure they're good treats. Because if it's like a boring milk bone, she might be like, oh, I don't care about a milk bone. I want to go see that dog. So I will drop, like, I usually use the puppered salmon treats or rabbit for this. I will drop treats right in front of the dog, like every step, to get the dog's nose to the ground and focusing on the treats and slowing down. And then I'll start to like drop a treat every 2 steps and then every 3 steps. Um, and if your dog's really treat motivated, sometimes I'll even do a go hunt game on the side of the, like in the grass or the snow. So if we're walking and we see another dog, I'll just take some treats and say, go hunt. And I throw the treats out into the grass and let the dog engage their nose and do a little game of go hunt. And they usually love to do that. That's more reinforcing for a lot of dogs than seeing another dog. But it depends on the dog. Um, so yeah, I would start to change direction, and then a lot of times I'll do a U-turn. So I'll change direction, and then I'll turn back and go the same way and reward the dog when they are next to me. And then if they pull again, I start to do a circle. Sometimes I'll just do big circles and I'll just keep circling until the dog's not pulling anymore, and then we go straight. So if your dog is wanting to go see the other dog and wants to go say hi, then the dog will learn, okay, if I'm pulling, we're just going to keep doing circles. But when I stop pulling, then we get to go forward and I get to get closer to the other dog. If your dog's trying to get away, like is afraid of dogs, then I would just say, let's go, and turn and go the other way. So sorry, I missed your question. Sometimes I try and like answer one person's whole question just so I don't forget, and then I forget to go back. So I'm glad I went back. Um, so yeah, let me know if that's what you were asking. When you say that she tries to get away, does that mean get away from the dog, or she's trying to get away from you to go see the dog? Um, okay. Now I want to make sure that I didn't miss anybody else. So, Julie, I probably told this before, but every time I live in a small town, so every time I go to the diner, I ask for, well, they know now. They're like, do you want your side of bacon in a box for the pups? Or now they say for the kids because they know that the dogs are my kids. So they just know that I'm getting a side of bacon for training, and that's what I do. Okay. Let me go through and, oh, you're from Maryland. Okay, let me write your name down. And Michelle, did I answer your question? Is that what you were kind of asking? I've got several friends that live in Maryland, by the way. One's from Baltimore. The other two, I'm not exactly sure what part of Maryland they're from. Okay. So are you doing the front clip harness and she's still pulling? Because I would grab the leash kind of closer and physically turn the dog around. And yeah, if she wants to go see them, I would start doing circles. There's a YouTube video on the circle method for dogs that pull, and it's kind of for reactive dogs, but you could do the same thing for dogs that pull. So if the dog gets focused and starts to pull, then you start to circle. And you just keep circling until the dog stops pulling. And then once the dog stops pulling, then you can go forward again. So then she will learn, oh, if I pull, we're going to have to walk in circles. But if I don't pull, then I get to go up and say hi to the dog. And depending on the age of your dog, sometimes I think it's so important to get socialized that we can always work a little bit more on impulse control later, even though that is important at an early age. We don't want the dogs to learn, oh, I get to pull and go see what I want, but at the same time, we do want them to socialize with other dogs, if that makes sense. So sometimes I weigh out, okay, what are we working on today? Is it socialization? I'll still probably turn and not allow the dog to like pull me to the dog, but I'll give a little bit more leeway if I really want a puppy to meet another dog because we're socializing. Hopefully that makes sense. With Jade, who's perfectly socialized, I don't let her pull. So if she wants to go say hi to somebody or see another dog, I will change direction or I'll stop and ask her to sit and then we'll go forward again. Um, and then yes, there's a dog that I've been working with for a year, and he's 110 pounds, and we are using a freedom harness with him, and he does a perfect heel 90% of the time. It's that 10% that is so hard because he doesn't give any warning that he's going to pull. He'll just be walking and then be like, I want to go sniff that bank, or I want to go see that dog. And he's pulled me over before. And even though he's on a freedom harness, he's still really strong. And it usually like catches me off guard. And so he gets away with a little bit of pulling before I can redirect him. So I have found if we're on a street and I don't want him to have a lot of leeway, I do the front and back clip. Um, if he's doing really well, I'll unclip the back and let him have longer leash and let him sniff a little bit more as long as he's not pulling. But then if he does start to pull a lot, I'll put the back clip back on and he gets less freedom. But I will do circles with him until he's not pulling because he also wants to pull to go say hi to other dogs. Um, and so I'll either stop or I'll like change direction and I don't let him pull me. But he's a year and a half now, so he should know better. And I know he's socialized, so now it's teaching him impulse control. Um, Another thing that I've started doing with this dog is a come front. So if he starts to pull, I'll say, come front, and that means, and I'll actually take a few steps back. So I pull the dog back into me, and he comes and sits and watches. And then I'll reward, and then we start walking again, just to redirect that pulling. So I hope that answers your question. Julie, we are thinking about adopting another dog or puppy. Should we wait until Dakota is a year? I would. I got Jade. I mean, Jade and Daphne are probably about, well, we don't really know their exact ages, but they're probably 6 months to a year apart. But I did have Daphne for a year before I got Jade. Um, so yeah, I like to wait. I like to wait a year just to get some really good things going, and make sure Dakota's got a really good start before getting another dog or a puppy. Um, if if Dakota's like perfectly potty trained and knows pretty much all of the basics, um, then if you're going to adopt an older dog, you could probably do it while Dakota's still a puppy. I would just make sure that the other dog that you're getting is very good with puppies, because we don't want to mess Dakota up and make her fearful of dogs. So just make sure um, that the new dog that you're getting is really good with pups, because not all dogs have the patience for puppies. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Tracy, when they're pulling and barking, do you wait until they're quiet for the treat? Um, yes. So if she's pulling and barking, then she's over threshold. So that at that point she can't really listen or learn. So I would change direction and go the other way and wait for the dog to get up close to me and then is quiet and then I will reward. So, yeah, if the dog is going the other way but still trying to pull towards the other dog and barking, I wouldn't reward for that. And then once the dog is by your side and is quiet, then you can turn around again and go towards the other dog. Um, Give me 1 second. Daphne's whining, so I've got to let her in. So hang on. Sorry, I have a dog door, but sometimes Daphne will just sit out there and whine because she wants the other dogs to come play with her. So to get her to stop whining, I just let her in. So yes, I do wait to treat when they're quiet. Um, and if they are barking, then I will increase distance. So I might just like say, let's go. And then we go and increase distance. And then I'll start from there. So yeah, and kind of the same thing with Michelle. If she's not afraid, then it's more like impulse control and just teaching her. So there's a thing called the Premack principle, which basically says a dog it will do kind of a lesser behavior or easier behavior. They're more likely to do something that they really don't want to do if it's going to lead to something that they really do want to do. So, like, they don't want to wait. They're like, especially young dogs, like they want what they want right now, kind of like little kids. But if they learn that they are not going to get it unless they wait and show impulse control, it's like my dogs don't want to sit and wait for their food, but they do because they know that it's going to lead to them getting food. And they don't really want to go to their spot, but they know that when they do, they're going to get their stuffed Kong or their lick mat. So teaching them that impulse control is exactly like what I did today with two different clients. It's like, I'm not going to give you attention when you're barking. I'm not going to come up and say hi. As long as you're pulling or barking, I'm going to turn and go the other way, or I'm just going to stand here and ignore you. And then when you're doing what I want and you're sitting and being good and quiet, then I will approach and say hi. So I would actually, if you can, set up training scenarios and get people to help you to teach it, and then start to maybe practice on walks. And turn and go the other way, and then reward. Also, before you see people, I would reward for good behavior. So if your dog is walking nicely and not pulling and checks in with you, I would reward for that. So that your dog learns, oh, that's what I get rewarded for. If mom likes it when I'm walking nicely, when I'm checking in, when I'm not barking. And let her know that that's what you like, and then if that's more likely to happen again because it's been reinforced. So Julie, yeah, usually with puppies, it is good for them to be a year old. I'm trying to think how old Daphne was when I got Piglet. I can't remember, but sometimes I rescue for different reasons, and I adopted dogs that I felt needed. Like Daphne had medical issues, and I was afraid she wouldn't be taken care of, so I got her at 6 months, and I normally get my dogs older. But yeah, I mean, the general rule is to wait until they're a year and then get another dog. If you do get another dog, though, I would try to not get a dog, and this is just my personal preference. This isn't a rule, but think about if Dakota's a year and you get another dog that's a year, you're going to have two dogs going through the teenage adolescent stage at the same time. And that can be challenging. Kind of like having two puppies at the same time can be challenging. So kind of keep that in mind. So I try to get my dogs at least a year or two apart. So so that they're at different life stages, but that's just my preference. It's not like a real rule. Hey, Julie. So let me write Julie down. I will never remember how to spell your last name. I do remember that you're from Georgia, but I probably will never remember how to say your last name. Okay, my 12-year-old dog is blind, has been for about 4 years, and recently seems more confused and barks a lot more. Yeah, and that's tough because number one, he's 12. And if he seems to be more confused and barks a lot more, the barking is probably, I mean, dogs, especially older dogs, can get dementia. There is such a thing as dementia in older dogs. And has anything else changed in his environment? Like if furniture changes, if anything changes and he can't see, it could be kind of more frustrating, and he could have early onset of dementia where he just doesn't understand and he is more confused. And the barking, like I would never want to like punish, not that you would punish it, but at this point, if you can't use treats because you have a diabetic and Cushing's dog, yeah, I would, if he starts to bark a lot, is he crate trained? Because if he's crate trained, I would maybe put him in a safe spot where he's in his crate, he can relax, he knows he's safe, and give him something to do, like a lick mat, a stuffed Kong, or something like that, if he's barking a lot. And if you can't give treats, I mean, if he likes comfort, he might like comfort at his age or attention. Then you could teach a quiet and then just like pet him or give him attention for being quiet. And it might just be that he's insecure, doesn't understand his surroundings or things like that. So I probably wouldn't really try to train it too much. But another thing that you could do is reward him when he is quiet. So give him that attention, like pet him, and let him know like it's okay. And when you're quiet, like I will give you attention. Because he might be barking for attention, or it could just be because he's getting old and can't see. If he's barking a lot too, you could talk to your vet about some anti-anxiety medicine. You could also try things like a thunder shirt. I did that with one of my dogs, and it worked amazing. She was terrified of thunder and fireworks. And so I got a thunder shirt mainly to just tell people not to waste their money because I thought it was ridiculous, but it worked so well that now I tell people, get your dog a thunder shirt. But just make sure that he has a safe place that he knows he can go to go lay down, because it's very possible that being blind and Cushing's and older. I fostered a Cushing's dog for a little bit. When I worked at the rescue, and it was really tough. And so I would just try to make him as comfortable as he can for as long as you can, and make sure he knows that that he has a safe place to go, and then give him something to do while he's in there. If he still likes to chew things or lick peanut butter, I've been making licky mats with baby food now, and freezing it. And that can cut back on barking too, like giving them something to do. You can try that. And if he likes praise and attention and can still hear, I would use that as a reward rather than the treat. So Yeah. Oh, going through old age is so hard. I'm going through it with Maddie, who's about 11, and it is really hard. Um, so yeah, I firmly believe in um, just making older dogs like as comfortable as you can. And I know barking can be super annoying. So sometimes I will just crate and give them something to do in there. You might ask your vet too if there's anything that they can, and I don't know if there is, I don't know if there's anything that they can prescribe for early onset dementia in dogs, but it might be worth asking your vet. If you're just noticing now that your dog's been blind for 4 years and now your dog's starting to bark more, then I would check and see if there's some other medical issues that could be going on as well. Um, and Michelle, yes, that is a very valid point. Um, before you allow your dog to go up and meet another dog, I would ask the person, is your dog friendly? Um, and having said that, I've had clients who've had puppies that said, is your dog friendly? And they're like, oh yeah, my dog's great with other dogs. And then the other dog like pinned their puppy down or like got after their dog. And it is okay for a dog to correct. So if a puppy like jumps on their head or is inappropriate, it's okay for a dog to correct, but it's not okay to fight or do something like that. So I always ask, and if I'm not sure, then I always err on the side of caution, and I just say, oh, I'm not so, letting my dog meet other dogs right now. You don't have to explain why. You don't have to say like, well, I think your dog looks mean or aggressive, but if you know how to read body language and um, you're just not sure, I always err on the side of caution and don't let them meet. So yeah, that's a really good point. Um, I always I always have dogs meet on leash too. At first, and in puppy class, we learn how to greet other dogs on leash. And so I let them greet and sniff, and dogs will circle. So I always have the people stay on the outside of the dogs and circle with them. So the leashes are always going out. And that way, if there is a snarl or something, you can separate the dogs really easy so that there isn't a fight. So I would try that as well. Um, if it's a loose dog and the dog comes running up to you and you don't know if the dog is nice, I do what's called a treat bomb, where I take a handful of treats and chuck them at the other dog, and the other dog will stop to eat the treats, and I turn and go the other way with my dog. So, yeah, I do that. But that is a valid point because I've seen one too many, like supposedly nice dogs that aren't so nice, and then you try to socialize your dog and they have a bad experience. So Julie, you got a puppy too. Okay. You have videos on teaching quiet on the Pupford app. I don't have videos. They may have that, like they have several. Um, they have so many different trainers, approved trainers, that they may have done. Um, like somebody else has done a quiet, but what I do is I first teach my dogs to teach on cue, or teach them to speak on cue. So how I did it with Jade is we were in puppy class and I had my assistant take Jade and I was going around to work with the other dogs, and Jade was barking because I was away from her. And so I told my assistant, I said, I want you to click and treat every time she barks. And first she's looking at me like, what? And I might just do it. Because I know that I always want to teach my dogs to speak on cue because I use them for reactive dog class and sometimes I need them to make noise. Sometimes you can capture it, like when they're barking, click treat and say good speak or good whatever you want to call it. And then Jade started to bark a lot because it's like, oh, barking gets me treats. And so then I named it Speak. Then when she was barking and I didn't want her to, I would say quiet. And I would wait for her to take a breath. So it's like bark, 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 take a breath. And right when she would take that breath, I would mark and treat. So I would like click, treat, good, quiet. So at first it's just a second. Like I just wait for them to take a breath for a second, quick treat. That's why I like the clicker because it's fast. And then if she starts barking again, I'll say quiet, quick treat. Once she learns quiet, then I don't treat every time because some dogs will be like, oh, I'm going to bark. And then they're going to tell me quiet and I'm going to get a treat. So I'm going to bark again. So I get told quiet and get a treat. Um, after I think they're doing it on purpose to get the treat, I don't treat it. I'll treat the first time and then I'll just praise. Like I'll say, oh, that's such a good quiet. You're not going to get a treat for that because you were just barking and now I know what you're doing. But I do it in my happy voice, so they're still getting praise. But yeah, that's how I teach it. If you don't have a dog that, well, you do have a dog that barks. So when your dog does bark, you can click good speak and name it like good speak. And then once you teach your dog to speak, then you can teach quiet. And I usually just wait. Sometimes you have to wait because the dogs will like bark, 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 bark. And I wait for them to take that breath and then I hurry and click. And there are times when you click right when the dog barks again, and that's going to happen. Just like keep trying and then keep um, working on that. And you can also redirect to other things. So sometimes, like I'll say quiet, hand target, like touch, because they have to touch with a closed mouth. So I will redirect them to like sit, touch, watch me. A bunch of different things that involve not barking, and I'll reward those as well. So I give the dogs like 3 or 4 different things to do other than um, barking. But yeah, I think we covered like quiet in the dog barking video or course, but I don't know that there's any videos on the app. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it. Um, oh, Julie, you're welcome. Yeah, I know I get wrapped up on teaching other things, and I'm guilty of the same thing, like not thinking outside of the box sometimes. Um, that's funny because I've been a trainer for well, like 20 years total, but like 10 years science-based training, and I'm training Jade as a service dog, and it's for some reason it's harder for me to train my own dogs because I expect more, and I think like I'm a trainer, so my dogs need to be perfect, and they're not. So when we do Jade service dog training, it's um, it's funny because if I hand her off to our trainer, Jade does so good, and I watch and I learn from other people all the time, and it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, why didn't I think of that? So it is different when you're working with your own dog, and yeah, sometimes you do have to think outside the box, and I'm totally guilty of that as well. So, hey, Flo, you're just in time to get in on the drawing. So I'm going to do a drawing. And Flo Beth, remind me where you're from. Oh, and Coda's whooping has decreased tremendously, and he's much happier. Awesome! I'm so happy to hear that. I love it when week to week I give suggestions, and people tell me that it's working, and that things like that I've suggested have worked. So I'm always happy to get follow ups. Um, okay, so let me put all of these in my little bowl. And oh, so you live in Mississippi. Okay, so tonight's winner is Michelle Carlson from Maryland. So congratulations, Michelle. I can't remember what the abbreviation is for Maryland. I'll just check it out. Is it MD? I think it's MD. So Michelle, you are going to email hello@pupper.com and let them know what kind of training treats you want. If you haven't tried them before, MD, okay. They have beef liver, chicken, rabbit, salmon, and sweet potato. So pick a one that you haven't tried yet, or pick what your dog's favorite kind is. So congratulations on that, and they will ship those out. And if nobody else has any questions, I'm going to go back and just do a quick check and make sure I haven't skipped over somebody else's. So do you know a natural remedy for ridding of tapeworm? I don't. You could ask a vet, and there are like homeopathic vets or holistic vets that you could ask, or you could ask Google. But yeah, I don't know of anything natural for tapeworms. But yeah, I do the preventative stuff. But if your dog already has tapeworms, I'm not sure if that's a natural remedy. I would ask a holistic vet, or see if you can find a holistic vet site on Google or something, and they may have something. Oh, your vets aren't too friendly there. Well, then I'd probably ask Dr. Google and just type in like homeopathic or natural remedies for tapeworms or something like that. Because yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for joining. You guys had really good questions tonight. I love doing these because sometimes it makes me think too, and I have to like think on my feet and be like, okay, now if I was with a client's dog, how would I handle this, or what would I do? So this is good for me as well. I really love doing these. So thanks everybody for joining, and I will see you all next week, same time, same place. Have a great week.